Long Island medium star Theresa Caputo's son, Larry Caputo Jr.'s wife, Leah Munch, has been embroiled in a major family feud with Theresa Caputo. Things get so heated that Leah Munch kicks Theresa out of their house. She makes it clear that if Larry Jr. wants to be with her, he has to leave his mother. Theresa Caputo had always been a force to be reckoned with. Her larger-than-life personality, strong opinions, and deep connection to the spiritual world had made her famous. But in her personal life, they often caused tension. And no one felt that more than her son, Larry Caputo Jr.'s wife, Leah Munch. From the beginning, Leah had struggled to find her place in the Caputo family. Theresa was fiercely protective of Larry Jr., always inserting herself into their lives, offering unsolicited advice, and making decisions as if she were still the most important woman in his life. Leah had tolerated it at first, hoping that marriage would bring some boundaries, but it only got worse. One evening, after yet another argument, Leah reached her breaking point. "You need to go, Theresa," Leah said, her voice steady but firm. She stood in the middle of the living room, arms crossed, staring down her mother-in-law. Theresa scoffed. "Excuse me?" "I said, get out," Leah repeated, her patience gone. "This is my house. I'm done with you disrespecting me, making decisions about my family like you're still in charge. If Larry wants to be with me, he needs to make a choice, you or me." Larry Jr. stood frozen in the doorway, eyes wide. "Leah, come on, she's my mother." "And I'm your wife," Leah shot back. "Which one of us are you committed to?" Theresa folded her arms, raising an eyebrow. "You can't seriously be making him choose. Family is everything." "No, Theresa," Leah countered. "Control is everything to you." Silence filled the room. Larry Jr. looked from his wife to his mother, torn between the two women in his life. Theresa's expression softened for a moment. "Larry, don't let her do this. You know how much I love you." Leah took a step forward. "And I love him too, but I will not live in your shadow. Either she goes or I do." Larry Jr. swallowed hard, his heart pounding. He had spent his entire life being his mother's son, but now he was a husband, and he had to decide where his loyalty truly belonged. Theresa's face darkened as she grabbed her purse. "Fine, if that's how it is." She turned to her son. "But don't come running to me when you realize what a mistake you've made." With that, she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. Leah let out a shaky breath, turning to her husband. "Well?" Larry Jr. looked at her, at the door, then back at her again. His entire world had just changed with one ultimatum. And for the first time in his life, he wasn't sure where he belonged. However, Theresa Caputo stood in front of her Long Island home, breathing in the crisp autumn air. It had been nearly a year since she and Larry had decided to go their separate ways. The decision hadn't been easy. Years of memories, laughter, and struggles tied them together, but they both knew it was time. Tonight, she was meeting Larry for dinner, not as husband and wife, but as two people who had once built a life together and were now learning to exist apart. She arrived at the small Italian restaurant where they had shared countless meals over the years. As she stepped inside, she spotted him at a corner table, smiling. "You look good, Theresa," Larry said, standing up to greet her. "So do you," she replied, settling into her seat. For the first few minutes, there was an undeniable awkwardness. They had spoken several times since the separation, but sitting face to face like this felt different. Yet, as the conversation flowed, they found themselves slipping back into familiar rhythms, joking, reminiscing, and for the first time in a long time, understanding. "I'm happy for you, Larry, I really am," Theresa said sincerely. "And I'm happy for you too," he replied. "We may not be together, but we're in a good place." She nodded, knowing deep down that despite everything, they would always share a bond, just in a new way. As she left the restaurant that night, Theresa realized something. This wasn't an ending. It was just a new chapter, one where they could both find happiness on their own terms. And that, she thought, was a beautiful thing. However, as the bright lights of the Meredith Vieira show shone down on the set, Theresa Caputo adjusted her signature blonde hair and scanned the audience. She had done thousands of readings, but each experience was unique. Each soul had a story to tell. Meredith introduced Theresa with a warm smile, and the audience erupted in applause. "Theresa, I hear you're already sensing something." Theresa nodded, closing her eyes for a moment. "I keep feeling a strong presence, a father figure for someone in the audience. He passed suddenly, and he's showing me a watch. Does that make sense to anyone?" A young woman in the third row gasped, her hands trembling as she raised them. "That's my dad," she whispered, tears already forming in her eyes. "He passed away from a heart attack last year, and he had this old watch he never took off." Theresa smiled gently. "He's here, sweetheart. He's telling me he never really left. He's showing me a little girl. Did you just have a baby?" The woman covered her mouth, nodding. "Yes, my daughter was born 3 months ago. I was devastated that he never got to meet her." Theresa's eyes welled up, the raw emotion filling the room. "Oh, honey, he's already met her. He's telling me he held her before she was even born. He says you named her after him?" The woman let out a soft sob, shaking her head in disbelief. "Her middle name is after him. How could you know that?" Theresa chuckled, her voice filled with warmth. "I don't, sweetheart, but your dad does. And he wants you to know he's so proud of you. He's always with you, and he'll be watching over his granddaughter." The audience sniffled as the woman wiped away her tears, her heart lighter than it had been in months. She had come to the show looking for entertainment, but she was leaving with something far greater, the knowledge that love never truly dies. However, it was a quiet evening in Long Island when Theresa Caputo, the renowned medium, decided to take a break from her usual readings and visit the quiet park near her home. The weight of the past few months had been heavy on her shoulders, with family tensions and personal challenges, so she needed time to reconnect with herself. As she sat on a bench, gazing at the stars, she felt an unusual sensation in the air, a strange pull, as if someone or something was trying to reach her. Out of nowhere, a soft voice whispered her name. "Theresa?" She looked around, her heart racing. Nobody was there. Her medium's instincts kicked in, but she didn't feel the familiar presence of a loved one who had passed away. This was different. This was something, or someone, unfamiliar. Suddenly, a figure appeared before her, but it wasn't like the others she had communicated with before. This entity was cloaked in shadows, its face obscured. Theresa felt an overwhelming sense of shock as it spoke. "You think you know everything, Theresa Caputo, but there is more to the story." Her breath caught in her throat. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "You've helped countless people connect with their loved ones, but your own past remains a mystery. A secret buried deep within your soul," the figure said, its voice cold and cryptic. Theresa's mind raced. The air grew thick, heavy with the weight of this revelation. She had always been able to handle the supernatural, but this was unlike anything she had encountered before. A sense of fear mixed with curiosity swirled within her. The figure stepped closer, the shadows still obscuring its form. "You must uncover the truth about what you've forgotten. Only then can you move forward." With a sudden flash, the figure vanished, leaving Theresa in a stunned silence. The park was quiet once more, but her mind was far from it. The part of her had just been shaken awake, and now she had to face a truth she had long buried. What secret from her past was this mysterious entity referring to? And why was it coming to her now, after all these years? As Theresa stood, her heart still racing, she knew this wasn't the end of the story. It was only the beginning of an unexpected journey that would challenge everything she thought she knew about herself. The shock had only just begun. However, Theresa Caputo, the well-known Long Island medium, had always been the one to connect people with their loved ones from the other side. But one evening, as she sat down with her family, something unexpected happened that would change their lives forever. It all started when Theresa and her husband Larry were sorting through old family photos in their living room. The boxes were filled with memories of their children growing up, birthday parties, holidays, and moments of joy. However, one particular photo caught their attention. It was an image of a young girl, no older than 6 or 7, with bright eyes and a radiant smile. "Who is this?" Larry asked, his voice filled with confusion. The girl in the photo was unfamiliar to him, though her face seemed hauntingly familiar. Theresa's heart skipped a beat. She had never seen this picture before, but the energy surrounding it felt overwhelmingly familiar. Theresa, as a medium, had experienced many extraordinary connections in her life, but this moment was different. She felt an immediate pull, as though something beyond the physical world was calling out to her. In that moment, she knew there was more to this photo than met the eye. That night, Theresa sat in meditation, connecting with the spirit world, hoping to understand the story behind the mysterious photograph. After what seemed like an eternity, she finally made contact with the young girl's spirit. To her astonishment, the girl introduced herself as their long-lost daughter, whom they had unknowingly given up for adoption many years ago. The adoption had been a difficult decision for Theresa and Larry, but due to unforeseen circumstances, they had lost touch with the child they had once held so dearly. Theresa and Larry sat in silence, overwhelmed with emotion. Their hearts swelled with joy and sorrow as they realized that the girl in the photograph was indeed their flesh and blood. The spirit had found its way back to them after so many years. Determined to find her, Theresa and Larry reached out to the adoption agency. After weeks of searching, they finally received a phone call that would change everything. The girl, now an adult, had been searching for them too. Their long-lost daughter, whose name was Emily, had grown up with the memory of her birth parents etched deeply in her heart. The day they met Emily was nothing short of magical. There were no words, only tears of joy and embrace. The years of separation melted away as they welcomed their daughter back into their lives, their family now whole again. Theresa, Larry, and Emily spent hours catching up, sharing stories, and making up for lost time. It was as if no time had passed at all. Theresa and Larry were overjoyed to see their daughter again, and Emily was equally thrilled to finally meet the parents she had always dreamed of. As a medium, Theresa had spent her life helping others reunite with their lost loved ones. But in that moment, it was she who had been given the greatest gift of all, the reunion with her long-lost daughter, proving that sometimes the most profound connections happen when we least expect them. However, on the eve of his 10th birthday, young Max sat in his room, surrounded by colorful balloons and birthday decorations. But amidst the excitement, he felt a deep sense of longing. It wasn't just the anticipation of cake and presents, it was a connection to something greater. Max had always been different. He had the gift of seeing spirits, especially those of his grandparents, who had passed away when he was still too young to remember. He had often seen their friendly, comforting faces standing at the edges of his vision. They were his constant companions in moments of quiet, always smiling, watching over him with a love that transcended the boundaries of the living world. They would whisper stories of their past, share little bits of wisdom, and occasionally offer a warm embrace when Max needed it most. But no one else could see them, not even his parents. As Max sat in his room, he felt a familiar presence. The air seemed to shimmer, and then there they were, his grandparents, standing side by side in the doorway, as vivid and real as anyone Max had ever known. "Happy birthday, my sweet boy," his grandmother whispered, her voice soft like the wind. Max smiled and ran to hug her. He had missed them so much. "We're so proud of you, Max," his grandfather added, a gentle smile tugging at his lips. "You've grown up to be such a kind-hearted young man." Max's heart swelled with emotion as he felt their love surrounding him. He wished more than anything that he could share this gift with others, to have them see what he could see, to understand the love and wisdom his grandparents had shared with him. Suddenly, a knock on his bedroom door interrupted the moment. His mother, Grace, peeked in with a big smile on her face. "Max, are you ready for your birthday party?" Max turned to look at his grandparents, but they were already fading, their forms becoming more translucent by the second. His grandmother gave him a tender kiss on the forehead. "Enjoy your special day, Max. We're always with you." As they disappeared completely, Max's heart felt lighter than ever, knowing his grandparents were still by his side. The party was a grand celebration. Friends and family gathered around, but what Max didn't know was that someone very special was about to make an appearance. His mother had arranged for none other than Theresa Caputo, the famous Long Island medium, to attend the party and give a special reading. When Theresa arrived, she instantly sensed a unique energy in the room. She greeted Max with a warm hug, and he smiled, not fully understanding what was about to unfold. As Theresa began her reading, her eyes widened as she started picking up on something powerful. "Max," she said gently, "I'm sensing the presence of two spirits, your grandparents. They've been with you all along, haven't they?" Max's eyes grew wide. He nodded, his heart racing. "Yes, they've been here, with me always." Theresa smiled knowingly. "They've been watching over you, Max, and they want you to know they're so proud of you. Your gift is special, and they are always with you, just as you feel." Max's eyes sparkled with joy. For the first time, he felt truly understood. His gift, the spirits of his grandparents, and the love they shared with him were all confirmed in that moment. The birthday that had begun with longing and uncertainty had turned into a beautiful revelation, a reminder that love never truly fades, and that even when people pass, their spirits remain. And so, Max's 10th birthday was not only a celebration of his life, but a celebration of the bond between worlds, a gift of love that transcended time, and a message of hope from those who would never be forgotten. Hello lovely viewers, welcome to my channel. I am Mina. Hope your day is so well. If you like the video, don't forget to subscribe the channel.